EcoRI, we've appreciated their time coming into the Navigant Credit Union Broadcast Center. I do believe Frank Carini is around the corner.
I am. How'd I do in the polling? How am I doing?
The
Pretty
Frank
good?
Carini question, I really can't tell anyone.
Okay. We'll
You'll have
surprise
to
everybody.
wait till
Yep.
next week. I think your numbers are looking good. I'm just gonna say
Looking
that.
strong? I get the best numbers.
You might be leading the pack. So I appreciate your being here. I'm sorry that I missed you last week. You had my better half.
Yeah, I had to deal with Josh. Thanks.
Well, Josh had to realize what it takes to have 3 guests a show on a daily basis.
He seemed disheveled.
I appreciate being back in here with you and the work that EcoRI does. I was at Barville High School. I saw Tim Faulkner briefly on Monday night up in Barville. Traffic jams in Barville, getting to the high school. It was a packed auditorium. I mean, I think folks knew that it was going to be, this contentious. Obviously, this is just one part of the process again. Kind of what now? Did we see that they are not taking the cities and towns' positions into account? I believe the Barville Town Council had said something after that wasn't discussed that night. But what now, Frank?
Well, now it's all a bunch of sitting and listening. There's no more public hearings. The public can't speak anymore. They can go to all the meetings. Have to be in the public. You
can still provide written testimony, though, can you not?
I believe you can, but
I believe.
no more speaking. Yes,
no
I think you can.
more speaking.
No more speaking. So I mean, it's going to come down to the advisory opinions from DOH, DOA, DEM, a bunch of other acronyms. Yeah, that's what it's going to come down to. I don't have the slightest idea what's going to happen, but that's it. Everybody said their piece. I mean, I guess they're not going. How can they not? They might not formally take what all the cities and towns said, but it's certainly.
How can you not?
They've read it. They've heard about it,
account?
so it's going to play a factor. And most everybody's against it, so I mean that's going to play a factor somewhat, even if it's not officially. Oh, we don't care what Woonsocket said or Portsmouth said or anything, but they've heard. So that matters.
They're going through the process, and let's just talk, there's clearly, obviously, whether Invenergy moves forward or not, but as we were talking, political polls are coming out. We're in an election cycle. I think everyone I talked with on Monday night, I asked them, did they think this was going to be a campaign issue? Of course, everyone there did. That's why they were there. This is of importance to them. Paul Roselli deciding to run the Democratic primary. Is he going to keep this, is clearly going to keep this issue at the forefront? He
is, but I mean, it's already in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline.
It's, no pun intended. And it's nothing that anybody that's going to run can say they're for it or against it, but it's not really going to have, I mean, you could get voted in because you're against it, or maybe voted in or voted out because you were for it or whatever, but it's not really going to have any impact on the setting board.
Will not have, as you said, impact on the setting board. But I think Rhode Islanders do want to know where elected officials and candidates stand on it, because clearly there were a lot of labor individuals there in support of it saying, hey, this is going to give us jobs. They clearly will be listening to see what elected officials say. And on the flip side, Barville and other residents who are vehemently opposed to it.
I mean, I guess some candidates can say, yeah, I'm for it, and hopefully they can get the union or some backing from people that want the jobs. But that's the only pro thing for it. I mean, as I've said before a million times, and not just me, many people smarter than me have said, let's build things we need in places that make sense. But anyway, so I mean, I don't know how many people are going to wrap their campaign around, yeah, I'm for the Burrville power plant, but
I think Paul is wrapping his campaign
against it. I mean, anybody's going to rap for it. I mean,
we put him on the spot here to make his formal announcement on Go Local.
I saw that. Well, I heard about it.
You heard it. See it. You get it through all the variety of mediums on Go Local.
And he always sent the press release too, and I said that. I'm glad we have different candidates in there, but EcoRI doesn't do who's running. We'll do it at the end. We'll do like whoever's in it. We'll do like what's their environmental platform, but we don't write.
But you're not partisan. You don't do any endorsements.
No, we can't do endorsements.
No. As a C3, no. Depend on the contributions of readers and grants. Remember that. One of the pieces this week, and you're a water guy, always talking about the health of the Narragansett Bay. The EPA research about the number of species found, kind of documented on the Narragansett Bay, kind of floor, if you will, over 1,000, and they think there could be hundreds more.
Yeah, there's a lot of life down there that we don't know about, and it's fascinating. Yeah, Todd McLeish had written the story, and I wish I'd gone to the talk. Actually, I didn't need to. Todd wrote a good story. But
you can read it on EcoRI.
It was fascinating that there's so many. They live in or on in the sediment. There's so many you wouldn't think.
Like 1,000? I'm like, crab, like
but there's
fish.
all the worms, but there's so many other things that you can't see or need a microscope to see, or
I would have given it like a 300. Like, then again, I'm not really good with numbers.
I probably would have said way too many than there are, but I would have said the other end of the spectrum. I don't know, a million? I don't know.
But it's literally, again, it's a whole other, environment, to use the cliche, down there.
And that's just the bay. It doesn't even talk about, open ocean and stuff.
That's just the bay. And one of the things pointed out was, again, the sort of decline in numbers when the health of the bay. I think the number, they said 1880 to 1980 when we were sort of busy ratcheting up the industry and pollution, if you will.
Polluting the hell out of it. Yeah.
Polluting the hell. But it's coming back.
Yeah.
I mean, the health, the species, it goes to show what happens. There's so many facets to making sure the health of the bay is good.
Yeah, and we've talked about this, and the bay is cleaner than it was, but then we have all these other pressures on it, where the pharmaceuticals are going to, we just can't stop, and I don't think Save the Bay has, or other people that care about the health of the bay have stopped, but it's not because, we cleaned it up, because there was a mess 40, 50 years ago, we've cleaned it up. Well, the work still needs to be done.
Exactly. We're not
still
going
more
to give
pressures
ourselves
on
a medal and just, pump ourselves full of drugs and then just exit it out into the bay.
Exactly.
Let's move from the water, and I know this might be an issue that's been touched upon before, but I was just fascinated by the hydrogen refueling station at the Stop and Shop on Branch Avenue. You hear all about electric cars, but what's the role of hydrogen?
Hydrogen fuel cell, it's been talked about for decades. I can't imagine there's one in Providence. Maybe there's one somewhere in Rhode Island, I should say. But it's a start.
A vehicle, you mean?
Yeah, they're kind of new. As I've said, Toyota's making like 3,000 this year. I forgot what it's called, but it's a sedan that's hydrogen fuel cell powered. I don't know how many of those 3,000 are going to be bought in Rhode Island or Southern Mass or anything, but it's a start. At least it's getting the infrastructure in place we can slowly grow it. It's just one, and maybe it won't be used for a year. I don't know, but at least it's there. Build upon it. We have to change our power grid and how we use our energy and how we deliver our energy. So it's a start, tiny step.
Is this going to be like DVDs and Blu-ray, like kind of two new technologies, but one's really going to win out? We're still at the nascent stage right now.
That's a good question. Yeah, possibly. I'm not smart enough to answer that, but
I
that's a
don't
damn good
know.
question. Yeah, one's going to outdo the other, the electric or hydrogen. That's a good point. The hydrogen car is like 50, at least the Toyota model is like 57,000 to start. The price will come down.
Do you get
but
some tax breaks with that?
I don't know. That's another good question that I'm not prepared for. I must be talking to a brick wall. That's a good question. I don't know.
I would think maybe an environmental impact there would be something. I'll have
Yeah,
to.
the only
research
byproduct of it is water. It does take natural gas to make the hydrogen, but at that level. But the only byproduct is water. So if you're going to use it, why not a tax break?
Speaking of byproducts, one of the articles in EcoRI this week, the composting, what's that again called? The
anaerobic digester.
The anaerobic digester, one of my favorites. I think the headline was, really has the capacity to kind of change the game, if you will, and sort of be a leader and having other areas follow suit to what Rhode Island's doing. Yeah,
there's one in New Bedford area. I forgot, Freetown maybe. And there's one in Dartmouth maybe. There's a few, but there's not many, and it's supposed to be the biggest in southern New England anyway, if it gets ramping up to what it's supposed to do.
So we're number one? We could be number one?
We're not number one yet. No, we're not number one yet.
We'll get there.
We don't have the best anaerobic digester yet.
So explain again to folks, we've talked about this before, again, literally how it works.
It's basically just, unlike composting, which the air would come in and you get soil or dirt, this is more it keeps it in-house. The methane gas is used for energy. Then it becomes not soil, but like a sludgy fertilizer that you can spray on plants or dump in flowers or whatever. It's not nearly as good, and it's not nearly as effective as composting, but it's a step in the right direction. A lot of composters that actually know how to compost, unlike myself, it's kind of a mess, but we'll say that it's better than not having it or wasting the food scrap, but it's not a good use of food scrap either.
Check that out on EcoRI. And I always ask you for previews, but you're like, I'll have to see what's coming in the pipeline.
Yeah, like hush hush. It's very
like your polling numbers.
Yes, exactly, my polling numbers. Because we're never really sure what we're doing, really.
Well, it's the news. It's not the olds.
Right. So, and I never know where Tim is, what he's doing. So that's always a mystery.
I just brushed by Tim. There were so many people at Barville on Monday night. Link Chafee was there.
Yeah.
What do you think of his kind of tethering himself to this hydropower potential from Canada?
I don't. I think that's like him talking about being a farrier or whatever. I mean, I don't think that's the end all be all. Hydropower.
Freudian slip.
It's
We're
like
just
it's
talking about
not.
nitrogen.
Yes, thank you. I don't. That's not really. It's so old school. If you, I mean, it's going away. People are getting rid of dams. I mean, it's not that environmentally friendly. Slightly better than, obviously fracking or something. But I don't think it's. I think it's a dead end. But what do I know about politics and energy or anything?
Well,
but
about
I mean,
politics and energy, I know I put you not to say on the spot, but just saying how folks were curious about where politicians were on the issue of energy. But you said EcoRI will probably put where they are on the issues. You've done this in the past. I mean, how many when you send that questionnaire out? I mean, does it depend on where things are at in the cycle? I mean, what do you generally look to get answers? I mean, how many questions do you ask candidates?
We don't ask that. Quite frankly, most Mayor Fung never gets back to us. The Republicans typically don't respond. Tim's one who leads this effort, and most of the time, many of the candidates don't bother. We only wait till the primaries and the general election, so we're not dealing with a bunch of different. So last year was 5 Democrats and I don't know how many, 3 Republicans. We only got a handful.
Well, let us know who's answering and who's not, because
we usually put it up there. We'll put it. We haven't put it out there yet, but when we do, Tim will say, didn't respond after, and we call and email.
Continue to push that out, because I think that's important to know who's weighing in and who's taking a powder.
Yeah, exactly. Answer some hard questions. The environment's important. Public health's important. You don't have to be a tree hugger to appreciate that fact.
Well, we'll point out what EcoRI finds out when they put those questionnaires out. Who knows? Maybe it might be an issue in an upcoming poll.
Oh,
maybe. Local.
Yep.
Exactly. After the Frank Carini question.
Yep. We're on
Several
polling.
environmental questions.
Exactly.
Well, I appreciate your coming in today
Of
to chat
course.
with me. We'll catch you again in the future, so appreciate, again, ecori.org. They come in every Friday. We appreciate their time.
Thank you. Have a
Great.
good weekend.
You too. Okay, I'll let you go off to the race.